Hey guys, in this video I'll be teaching you 7 3-day 2 continuing hyperbolas. So you should all have a sheet to follow along with. The first thing we're going to do is rearrange this into standard form. So just like ellipses, we want to separate it into two groups. So our x's and our y's, and then we want our constants to be on the other side. So if our constant currently is 211, and it's already on the right side, so we don't have to manipulate it, but if it's not, you do. So the first thing we're going to do is factor out the a value. So we'll have 5 parentheses x squared minus 2x. And then this is what's really important. You need to make sure you factor out that negative. So this is going to become minus 4 parentheses y squared minus, and 56 divided by 4 is 14. So pausing real quick, if there wasn't a 4 here, so it was just negative y squared minus 56y, you would need to still factor out that negative. Right, we always want this number or our coefficient to be positive. Anyways, so now we're going to complete the square twice and add it in the parentheses and to the other side. So we still have x squared minus 2x. Negative 2 divided by 2 squared will give us positive 1. And then negative 14 divided by 2 squared will give us positive 49. Then we need to add 5 times 1, so 5. And negative 4 times 49, which is negative 196. So now we can factor on the left and simplify on the right. So we still have our 5 out there. And this factors to be x minus 1 squared minus 4 times y minus 7 squared equals, and 211 plus 5 minus 196 gets us 20. Now I'm also going to take a side note real quick. Let's say this were a negative 20. If this ended up being negative, this would become positive, and this would become our negative, so we would want to rearrange it in the end. So I believe that happens in your homework. But it's not happening now, so. Next step is this needs to equal 1, so we divide everything by 20. And we get x minus 1 squared over 4 minus y minus 7 squared over 5 equals 1. And now we are in standard form. And I know it's a hyperbola because it's minus. So what my center would be 1, 7, and my a value would be 2. If we were going to graph it, but anyways, here is your U try. Just as a quick note, I noticed when I got home, so your copies are already made, that there's no y here. So if you could write that in, this should be minus 96y. And then let's pause the video and you guys do this either on your own or with the people around you. Alright, so hopefully you guys got x plus 2 squared over 16 minus y plus 3 squared over 25 equals 1. So you need to rearrange, or you can kind of do it all in one step. So I did all in one step. I took my 25x squared with my 100x, factored out the 25, and had them rewritten. And then same thing with my y, so you can factor out a negative 16. And then complete the square, and make sure you do 25 times 4 to get your 100, and negative 16 times 9 to get your negative 144. And when you combine all of those, you get 400, and then factor and simplify. So now if you flip it over, let's talk about when you're just given parts. So write the equation for a hyperbola given the vertices and the conjugate axis length is 10. So just like for ellipses and parabolas, I want you to draw a sketch. So let's make a coordinate plane. And then our vertices are at 3, 2, and 3, 6. So I'm going to say that this is 3, 2, call this 6. And then, let's do this in the color. I would put a V next to this to remember that it's the vertice. Okay, so now that we've got the vertices, that gives us a bit of information, right? So this whole distance, 6 minus 2, will give me 4. So if from vertice to vertice it's 4, remember that's my transverse axis. So that means my A value is half of that. So I know that A is going to be 2. And if A is 2, I could do 6 minus 2 to get me to the center. Which is at 4. So now I know that my center point is going to be 3, 4. Then the conjugate axis is 10. And remember that's going, well, because the vertices are horizontal, that means because the vertices are vertical, our conjugate axis is horizontal. And I know that 2 times b is equal to the conjugate, so that tells me my b value has to be 5. So I know b is equal to 5. And then for my generalized equation, that's everything I need. I need a, I need my center, and I need b. So now it's just what is going to go first when we're subtracting. Now remember that that depends on, is it vertically oriented or horizontally? So because this is vertically oriented, I know it has to be y, and then it's minus k, so minus 4 squared. And it's always divided by a squared, so because a is 2, we're dividing by 4. And then it'll be x minus 3 squared divided by b squared, which is going to be 25, equals 1. And we're done. So for credit, you need to have the equation, obviously, a sketch, and then listing the stuff that you know. So moving on to the U-try. So you got 2 problems here. Given the foci and the conjugate axis, so kind of similar to the last problem, and then given the vertex and foci. So why don't you pause the video and try to do this either by yourself or the person sitting next to you, and we'll check it in a minute. Alright, so hopefully for A, you guys got x minus 4 squared over 45 minus y plus 3 squared over 36 equals 1. So just recapping what I did to get this, the first thing I did was plot my foci. So I did 13, negative 3, and negative 5, negative 3. And then I knew my foci distance would be a total of 18. And then remember, center to foci is going to be your C value. So if foci to foci is 18, that means that my center, or my C value, excuse me, is going to be 9. So that helped me find my center, because 13 minus 9 is 4. So I know my center, oh, I guess I forgot to write it, is at, I'll even write it now. My center is going to be at 4, negative 3. Then, because I was given again my conjugate axis, I know that my b value will be half of that, so b is 6. Now this is kind of like the ellipse problems we did in the past, where I don't know what a is, but I know that to get my c value I can do the square root of a squared plus b squared and solve for a. So I solve for a squared, and I really only need a squared for my formula, so I just stopped there. Now because my center and foci are going horizontally, I know that that's going to be my transverse axis, which means my equation has to start with x squared over a squared. So for b, Hopefully you guys got y minus 4 squared over 36 minus x plus 3 squared over 28 equals 1. So recapping how I got this, I started by plotting my vertices and my foci, so B and F. And then I found the distance between my vertices, and I know half of that it's A. And then I found the difference between my foci of 16, and I know that's going to give me C. So then algebraically I can solve for B squared. And then my center, I can either use my foci or my vertices, it doesn't matter, to do some subtraction to get my center at -3, 4, and then substitute everything in. And that's it.